So on the left hand side, you can see like different security profiles here. So security profiles like antivirus, spyware, anti-spyware, UI filtering, vulnerability protection, file blocking, wildfire. So from here, like if even like I just let me take any anti-spyware, for example. So anti-spyware, a very good security profile, in fact, in Palo Alto firewall, and with it, even like if simply if I talk about the DNS security, so it has like information about all uh, malware domains, phishing domain, recently registered domains, and we can set different actions whether internal users should be allowed to visit phishing domains or malware domains or not, right? And how this Palo Alto firewall is going to prevent protect internal users not visiting malicious websites. I will explain that, like, because there are different actions here, not only block. In fact, there is like uh, DNS sync calling option, so we can use that also. And same here, like in antivirus, we can create like profile and associate with the policy URL filtering. So in URL filtering, uh, again, there are different categories, and even we can create and total 72 items, 72 different categories here predefined. So we can restrict internal users to not like let them access any malicious or phishing websites, right? Or maybe as per the company policy or compliance, we can create URL filtering and even like custom categories there. So we can have like our own URL category created there. Data filtering also, file blocking, as I discussed. So file blocking also here, like different extensions. Like if I click here, file types, so different file types. So we can like allow or block different file types in different direction, like upload, download, or both, and with different action, like just only generating logs or restricting like these different file types, right? So file types and data filtering is also there. So here like whole like there are 7 different security profiles. Okay, so they all are like security features and zone. If you remember already, we talked about security zone, and security zones are like here. So like for example, if you look at the option here, then there are different security zones created, like DMG, inside, outside, VPN, and different interfaces there in security zone. And even if you don't do that, you don't put interfaces in security zone, so at the time of like doing commit here, like any like installing policy, uh, warning or error message will be displayed there, right? All right, so I hope you understand now different security features offered by Palo Alto Firewall, starting from the app ID, user ID, and threat prevention based on content ID. I'm not talking about the like platforms and architecture. So I will talk about SP3 single pass parallel processing architecture in the next module, in fact. So I'm not going to talk about SP3 here. I'll talk about SP3 later on. And the URL filtering, you understand, and data filtering, file blocking, Wi-Fi. So they all are security features of Palo Alto firewall. Let's move on. And the next one is like a routing feature. Networking, I mean, not routing, in fact, networking. So in networking, in Palo Alto firewall, there is advanced routing. And what do I mean by advanced routing? So advanced routing is like in Palo Alto firewall, we can configure both unicast and multicast routing. First, unicast and multicast routing. In unicast routing, even like static routing is supported, dynamic routing also supported, and the protocols like RAP, OSPF, BGP, we can configure. In multicast routing also PIM is supported there, protocol independent multicast, all right, is pass mode. And both IP version 4 and IP version 6, both routing are supported. IP version 1, 4 and 6, unicast and multicast with static and dynamic. Apart from that, here like in Palo Alto firewall, even we can configure PBF, that is policy based forwarding, very similar to PBR, policy based routing in Cisco routers, right? So in Cisco routers, we create route map, and with the route map, we configure policy based routing. So here in Palo Alto firewall, there is policy based forwarding. So if we want to configure routing based on like some policy, maybe service based routing or source based routing, so for that, policy based forwarding or routing can be used, because as we know, routing is based on destination address only, right? So if you don't create any policy, so any routing engine, what routing engine does, routing engine routes packet based on destination IP only. Even the source IP address is not taken into consideration at the time of making routing decision. Devices never like check the source IP address from which source packet is coming from, is never taken into consideration by default, right? But yes, with the policy PBR or PBF, we can create policy in routing. And in Palo Alto firewall, what happens if Palo Alto firewalls finds policy based forwarding, right? Then routing table is checked later on. It means before checking the routing table, for example, let's say in routing table there is one default route pointing with any like exit interface or next to IP address, and there is one specific route here, or maybe the same like route, no matter what whatsoever. So Palo Alto firewall always checks policy based forwarding table first, and if it doesn't find any matching route there, matching policy route there, I mean, then advanced routing, means like not advanced routing, basically routing, standard routing, that is checking route in the virtual router, a routing table is done, right? So here in Palo Alto firewall, advanced routing is supported, unicast, multicast, IP version 4 and IP version 6, all supported here. Policy based forwarding is also supported, that is PBF, right? And the third one is routing table virtualization. So what is routing table virtualization? So if like you want like Palo Alto firewall to maintain two separate routing tables. In one routing table, you want to put two interfaces, Ethernet 1/1 and 2, and in another routing table, you want to put additional two interfaces, right? So virtual router 1, two interfaces, Ethernet 1/1 and 1/2, and virtual router 2, different routing table, I mean, Ethernet 1/3 and Ethernet 1/4. So yes, supported by Palo Alto firewall. By default, there is only one virtual router created with the name default, and all interfaces, of course, they need to be in the same if we don't create additional virtual router. But since in Palo Alto firewall, we have option to create additional virtual router, internal router basically, right? So yes, if we do that, we create additional virtual routers so interfaces can be in different routing tables. And by default, there is strict isolation. It means virtual router 1 will never communicate with virtual router 2. Virtual router 2 will not communicate with virtual router 1 if communication is needed. So yes, like we can make that happen. We can do that inter VR communication, inter virtual router communication, that is possible, but by default is strictly isolated from each other. And virtual routing table virtualization is very similar to VRF concept in Cisco router, virtual routing and forwarding, right? And if you like put both interfaces in one routing table and other two in different routing table, so even you can use overlapping IP, I mean, like if you want to assign 10.0.0.1 IP address to Ethernet 1, and you want to also assign IP address from the same subnet to Ethernet 1/3, and they both are in different routing table. So yes, possible, allowed, good. But what if both interfaces, both interfaces are in the same routing table, in the same virtual routing table, right? So can we assign IP address from the same subnet or same network? No, a big no, right? So whether it's a Palo Alto firewall or Cisco router or any other device, if interfaces are in the same routing table, so they both can never have IP address assigned from the same subnet or same network. Never possible, right? The only way is work around is what? Like routing table virtualization. Put one interface in one routing table and the interface in another routing table. So in this way, yes, you can use overlapping addresses. So like this routing table virtualization use case is something like in multi-tenancy. Let's say service provider here, there are two different customers. Customer one also wants to use IP from 10.1.1.0/24. Customer two also like the frame same IP subnet. So yes, possible, but only if interfaces are not in the same routing table. So in Palo Alto firewall, routing table virtualization is supported, known as your virtual router. But by default, there is only one virtual router in Palo Alto firewall. The name is default, right? So if you want to create additional virtual router, yes, you can do that. I will show you in the routing section. VPN termination. So Palo Alto firewall means like you can terminate like VPN tunnels, be that site to site, global protect, either SSL or IPsec, or even clientless, client based. Both are supported. And I hope you understand. Clientless means no client software is required. Client based means client software is required. Large scale VPN it's a like a very good feature in Palo Alto firewall to quickly deploy or connect small sites or branch offices with the major sites. I mean like the HQ or other sites, in fact, right? With minimum configuration, very similar to like the nowadays like what we do in SD-WAN, GTP kind of stuff, zero trust provisioning with minimum or no configuration. We configure branch edge device. I mean like in a new branch site added to the like organization. So maybe with minimum or no configuration, one edge device is automatically configured in very automated fashion, right? Very similar to that here in large scale VPN. In fact, if there is one branch office or a small like location or site, and that need to be connected with other sites, big sites, in fact, with IPsec tunnel. So here with large scale VPN with minimum configuration, very quickly, very easily, sites can be up, in fact, right? So it's another good feature. And in new versions of Palo Alto operating systems, even you will find like solution for SD-WAN. So, but of course, separate license is required. Uh, and if you know basics of SD-WAN, so SD-WAN is something like one of the implementation of SDN, software defined networking, because one implementation is like SDA, software defined access, for what? For the campus network, right? Controller based solution, the LAN environment, like if you want to get rid of VLAN, spanning tree protocol and all that, and a lot of minimum like manual configuration, you want to get rid of all that. So you can go with this SDA solution, software defined access, for mainly for the campus network. And the controller based solution, of course, to manage data center, like ACI, and the controller is APIC is used. Nexus switches like spine and leaf. And the third one is SD-WAN, software defined WAN, wide area network. So wide area network, data center, and the campus network. There are three different types of software defined networking implementation. So nowadays, like firewall companies, security companies, they're also offering some sort of like SD-WAN solution, SD-WAN features. And you understand like why like they are offering like however separate license is required for that. But why SD-WAN by like Fortinet, this Palo Alto firewall? So think this way. Uh, Traditional WAN technology is something like if there is one branch site and HQ at the data center. So in earlier days, most of the applications were hosted in HQ in the data center there, right? Most of the applications and branch sites, 70% traffic served from the HQ or the data center, and rest 30% maybe from the internet cloud. So in earlier times, branches they just connect to the HQ a data center. Technically, is a they back hauled with any it's a link in fact P2P lease circuit or MPLS circuit. With that branches they like first connect to the HQ a data center, and since 70% applications are accessed from there, so no need to route traffic to the internet, and rest 30% again just routing traffic to the internet this way. In fact, it means first backhauled to the HQ data center and then to the internet. But nowadays, in fact, there is a paradigm shift. In fact, most of the applications are hosted in the cloud. Some native applications, SaaS, in fact, software as a service application there, like Office 365, Salesforce, and some other applications in the cloud. So there is need of like a direct internet access or local breakout. It means branches they need to connect nowadays directly to the internet, not going this way, right? Directly to the internet, because nowadays like 70% of traffic is internet bound traffic. Even like applications and infrastructures slowly and gradually either moved or just getting migrated to the cloud. So now there is need of like like providing direct internet access or local breakout. But what about the security then? Do we need to put a firewall in like different sites? Because like in earlier days, maybe like all the security devices, IPS, load balancer, firewalls there in the data center, or maybe HQ. So yes, if we are providing direct internet access to the branches, so either like the device itself should provide security, or maybe we can go with some like a cloud-based security solution provider like Cisco Umbrella or Zscaler kind of thing, like cloud-based security solution provider, or maybe like any security device here. Okay, so basically security companies even they are like providing some kind of SD-WAN solution with separate licenses. So if here like there is a firewall and there are two interfaces, but in very simple way I'm just trying to explain in very simple way, simple manner. So if there are two interfaces, they both terminated to the firewall like ASP1 and ASP2, and what you want like what your objective is to like route traffic by using ISP1 for like cloud based applications, right? But as long the link is like like performing well, I mean like there is no latency, and packet loss is also within the limit, and jitter, I mean like on the basis of performance. So you want to route traffic via ISP1, right? As long service level agreement defined in the performance like latency, packet loss, jitter are meeting, right? Within the limit. And in case if something goes wrong with the link, or maybe like there is in fact packet loss more than that what we have defined. So what we want like the traffic should be automatically shifted to ISP2. So is that possible? Yes. Basically, even in Fortinet firewall, like we create SD-WAN interface, we put both the interfaces in SD-WAN, and then we create, like some kind of policy, like policy-based routing, in fact, in conjunction with performance. So yes, like we can use in this way also. I mean, like in fact, advanced routing or performance based routing, application aware routing, rather I would say AAR kind of stuff. So in Palo Alto also there is SD-WAN option here in the Palo Alto, but for that you have to take additional license. Without license, you cannot use like SD-WAN profile or interfaces. No, not possible. VPN termination, you understand, routing table, policy, advanced, and the QoS, quality of service, is another networking feature. Is here, like in Palo Alto firewall, right? So in Palo Alto firewall, even like you will find all almost like network device features, routing features means routing, policy based forwarding, QoS, BGP, OSPF, whole bunch of like configuration here. So they all are what? Networking features. The third section, the last one, is related to management, right? So first we discuss about security features, then networking, and the third major category is management. So in Palo Alto firewall, like device management flexibility, yes, like ultimate, because very handy. In fact, the dashboard is all GUI based. From the browser, you can manage your firewall because there are different ways to do the management. In fact, for like, uh, in fact, first whether we want to manage a firewall from GUI or CLI. So for GUI, in fact, there is one dedicated management port. We can use that. Even we can also use data interface if required. Then with like some additional configuration, we can use like LAN or WAN port to manage the firewall from the GUI. Of course, there is one dedicated management port. And for CLI, again, like either via console SSH or via network also management port. In fact, CLI is also there for the local management. Even like there is another option in Palo Alto firewall, centralized management, right? Centralized management. And what is centralized management? If let's say you have 100 Palo Alto firewalls and you want to manage all 100 Palo Alto firewalls from a centralized management server, right? Because you understand like managing 100 firewalls can be very difficult, can be cumbersome, right? So what do you want? You want to manage all the 100 firewalls from a centralized management system. You want to create policy from here, you want to push all the policy from management server to all the like firewalls, even logging, reporting, everything you want to do from here. And even Palo Alto recommends if you have more than 6 firewalls in your environment, so you should go with the centralized management. And not only the management, even the logging, centralized logging also. So in Palo Alto firewall, the centralized server, right, that we use is basically Panorama. Of course, license is required for that. If you have license to manage 25 Palo Alto firewalls with single management server, so maximum you can manage 25 firewalls only. So firewalls, they also need to have individual licensing plus Panorama license, right? So if you take 25 licenses, it means you can add only 25 firewalls, because we add like Palo Alto firewalls there in the Panorama, and then we start managing those firewalls from here, from the central. However, it's not very unique feature of Palo Alto firewall. Similar features we have in Checkpoint firewall also, known as security management server. In Cisco also, FMC, firepower management center, FMC. In F5 also, like the big IQ is the management server, centralized management server. So like different vendors have like different management server, but because it's need of our, in fact, because if you want to manage 100 200 devices, so definitely local management will be very very difficult, of course. So if you don't want to do that, you don't want to manage devices locally, then uh, of course a centralized management solution is here, like in Palo Alto firewall, and that is Panorama. And even like apart from that, you can have like role based access here. You can create different user accounts with different roles. So like ease, in fact, like in Palo Alto firewall, configuration management like very easy. Very easy, in fact. Logging reporting is also very good here in Palo Alto firewall. Even you can generate custom report based on username, IPs for a week, for a month, right? And another good feature in Palo Alto firewall is virtual system, VSys. What is virtual system? Virtual system is basically firewall virtualization. Firewall virtualization. Hmm. Still not understood? Firewall virtualization? Okay, let me explain. Firewall virtualization is something like there is one physical firewall, and if we want to cut down the firewall into four pieces, we want to make four a single firewall as a four different firewalls, right? So that I can designate or dedicate one virtual firewall to one customer, another to another customer in multi-tenancy or service provider or data center environment. So will that be possible? Like multiple virtual systems? Yes, VSys, known as virtual system, right? So firewall can be broken down into 4 or 8 virtual systems. Again, depends like the hardware platform, right? Hardware platform plus licensing, because generally firewall comes with like maybe 1 or 2 or 4 virtual systems with the base license. So if you want to increase that and your a specific model or hardware supports, so for that you'll have to take separate license. Licensing is again required here. And before like selecting a product, like let us assume that you want to purchase a Palo Alto firewall hardware device. So it's strongly recommended that you should read the data sheet first, right? You can also compare side by side different platforms, how many virtual systems total supported, VPN connections, NAT connections, session, encrypted traffic throughput, plain text traffic throughput, right? Maximum number of security zones supported, how many zones you can create in the firewall. So better like just read out all the information there, and then just decide like whether which specific model or product you want to purchase. And another important point I must mention here is virtual firewalls. Virtual firewalls like the VM series firewalls do not support virtual systems, and even some lower series hardware models, they also don't support virtual systems. So virtual firewall cannot be further be virtualized, right? So there is only one virtual system there in the virtual firewall, and you cannot have more than that. Okay, so a good feature virtual system. Again, like different virtual systems completely isolated, right? One virtual system by default doesn't communicate with another. Required, then yes, we can make that happen. But by default, no. Inter-VSys communication, yes. There are like two different ways for that. Not going to discuss here. Yes, but yes, that is possible. High availability is another like good feature, and the Palo Alto firewall supports both active standby deployment and as well as active, right? Active and active standby. And of course, stateful failover. Stateful failover means even the existing connections will not get terminated in case of failover. So if a failover is triggered, so even active connections will remain active. Okay, because stateful means session table is copied to a redundant pair device in real time. Okay, so high availability is stateful, and there are different reasons for failover. When failover is like triggered, so of course we can configure that also, but there are different like reasons when failover is triggered in Palo Alto firewall. I'll explain that in high availability section, not right now, But you understand like HA mode deployment is something like providing redundancy and as well as load sharing. So load sharing and redundancy both are provided. Centralized management already you understand already. I have discussed this point, centralized management like Panoma. So in Palo Alto firewall and like many more features are there, like, right? These were some key points related to management, and then previously we talked about the security and network features, and many more features like SSL decryption, right? Captive portal, even DAS protection, zone protection profile, a very good feature, zone protection here, right? File for and data filtering already we have discussed that point. And even you can integrate your Palo Alto firewall with external services also, be that the directory service or radius or syslog server or any like external service or server. So you can do that as well. So Palo Alto has like routing capability, security capability, management capability, right? So but of course, routing wise, even if border gateway protocol is supported, so it's not guaranteed that you will find all features of BGP there in Palo Alto, right? So if you want to compare with the Cisco router, I mean, like if you run BGP on Cisco router, so maybe like different features there, advanced features and attributes, manipulation. So similar kind of stuff you will not find here in Palo Alto, because you understand like Palo Alto is primarily a security device. Routing is of course additional feature, add-on feature. Okay, so main focus is on the security. So definitely routing wise, yes, like for medium sized network, good. Very large ISP network, no, like you definitely organization or company should have a dedicated router for that with routing engine, forwarding plane, data plane, and all that. But a small and medium sized network, even no need to like put a router in front of the firewall. Even directly you can put your link to the firewall. Even you can do the link termination on the firewall if like encapsulation type and the media and all supported. So even you can do that, right? But if you want to compare all the routing features capability with the Cisco router, so definitely you will not find all that. But up to certain extent, it's a good device, good feature, because all in one in a single box, routing capability, management, and security features, all in single box, right? With complete threat prevention. It's not like in earlier days, like in Cisco, like router first, and then apart from the Cisco router, firewalling, Cisco ASA firewall, and then for threat prevention and all that, Cisco IPS device, right? To different devices. I mean, like routers, ASA firewall, IPS, even Cisco also like FTD is something like all-in-one box solution. Palo Alto also all-in-one. And the good point to understand in Palo Alto firewall is, even though all features are integrated in one box solution, without compromising the performance of device, right? So all the features are there in the Palo Alto without compromising the performance with minimum latency. So what Palo Alto firewall team has done with the hardware, with the architecture, we will talk that in the next section, in the next module, right? Next module is also going to be very important, because providing all solution in single box is not a big deal. A lot of like unified threat management like security devices, appliances, they also behave in the same way. I mean, like they also provide like all the features in single box, right? But cannot be used in large enterprise networks, service provider or data centers, because they don't have any advanced features or techniques to minimize the latency, to enhance the performance, to enhance the throughput of the device. But Palo Alto firewall has done all that, right? Providing all the features in single box, IPS, routing, and everything, and without compromising the performance of the device. So that's what like the unique feature is, right? SP3, single pass parallel processing architecture, not using file proxying, analyzing traffic in real time, right? A stream based content inspection. A lot more I have to discuss in for that, in fact, in the next section I'm in. Okay. So that's all for this module, in fact, and I hope you understood now Palo Alto firewall features, what all features there, and some other features are also included in PAN OS 10, like the machine level learning, IoT thing, in fact. So added here in new versions, like 10.x, in fact. Okay, SD-WAN already I have talked.